In part 2 of our video, we're going to take this illustration that we've created in Illustrator and we're going to convert it into simply a very complex compound shape so that we can use it with a die cutting machine. In this case, I'm going to be using a Cricut, but you can certainly use a Silhouette or any of the other products on the market. So we have already placed our pictures, we've found our quote, we've made sure that there are connectors. So for example, here in the letter O we have a connector that's not actually part of the typeface. This is just a little connector we've added to go through the counter so that all of our black parts of this illustration will be one piece of paper, or we'll be able to cut that out. So what I want to do next is I'm going to zoom back out to see the artboard. I want to select all my text, so I'm going to use my select option, select object, text objects, and so that selects all of my text, and I'm going to come up to object and I'm going to choose the option called create outlines. But before I do that, I want to show you what's going to happen. We're going to toggle back and forth between two different views for the remainder of this project quite extensively. One of them, this is called the preview mode, but the other is called outline, and it lives right under the view menu. Control Y is your hotkey, and you'll notice right now all of our text is solid black. And so I'm going to select that all again, select object, text objects, so that selects all of my text on this layer. Actually, it selects all the text in the document. I happen to have my other layer locked, so those will not be selected. And what I'm going to do is go to Type, Create Outlines. And you're going to notice when I click this, what happens is my text loses the baseline and becomes just outlines. It becomes just points instead of type. So now when I select one of these, I no longer have the character options, the type options up at the top. If I get the text tool and try and highlight this, nothing happens. This is now just paths. Illustrator sees this only as shapes, no different than a circle or a square or our dog. When I toggle back to my preview mode, however, it looks exactly the same. So the easiest way to tell that is when we're in outline mode, our text is no longer black shapes. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to select all of our elements on this page, and I'm going to use Command A to do that. If you're on a PC, it would be Control A. And I'm going to grab this tool here. This is the Shape Builder tool. The Shape Builder tool is part of the set of tools with the Live Paint tool, Live Paint bucket, and the Live Paint selection tool. The Shape Builder tool is, in my opinion, one of the coolest tools in Illustrator currently. We used to have to use the Pathfinder to create all of these operations. Now we have the Shape Builder tool, which does it much faster. And the Shape Builder tool, you'll notice as I hover over an area in my illustration, will fill in spaces with a gray pattern. And that will allow me to connect all of these pieces so that I have a complex path pretty quickly. I will say, before we get started, I noticed one thing that I did unintentionally. When I designed my illustration, I'm going to go back to outline mode, or preview mode here. When I designed my illustration, I wanted to make sure that I could continue the line of this dog pretty smoothly and make sure that it stayed connected. So I put an outline on the shape of my dog. And that outline does not show up when I am in outline mode, only when I'm in preview mode. So what I need to do is actually take that stroke, and so I'm going to select my dog, and I'm going to go up to Object, and I'm going to choose this option called Expand Appearance. And that's going to take the stroke. I'm going to undo that, Command Z to undo. I want to go to outline mode so that you can see exactly what happens here. Right now I just have the single path of the dog, but when I choose Object, Expand Appearance, that stroke and the path along which the stroke is centered also becomes elements. So now I have this path, I have the center line, and I have my dog. So what I'm going to do is go back to my artboard, or my full artboard, and back to preview mode. I'm going to select everything, Command A. Another option is to come up here and say select all. And we'll go back to preview mode, view outline, and I'm going to grab my shape builder tool and I'm going to zoom in to a small area. I'm going to work small on this project because it's the fastest way to make this happen. And we'll notice that when I hover over an area, I get this gray pattern. And the gray pattern is the area that will become its own shape when I click with the shape builder tool. So I'm going to start with my dog down here. And I'm going to take the shape builder tool and I'm going to draw inside the first outline and the second outline of our puppy there. And I'm going to let go, and then it takes it just a minute, and notice now those portions of the illustration are gone. And so now I'm going to come do the same thing here. One of the things I need to do anytime I'm working with an or a compound shape is if I want to have areas that are going to be outside the shape, I need to connect them somehow. So I'm going to come here and select the path. When I let go, Illustrator adds that to the outline. I'll do the same thing there. Come do the same thing here. And in this case, I can drag all the way into the corner and add that portion. We'll add this portion. I'm going to come up here. I want all of this part to be included, so I drag through it. Come get the tail. So I'm going to drag through, drag. And now the tail all becomes one shape. And then I'm going to be down to where I'm working on my text. So I'm going to come work in closer. This is a project where you'll want to work fairly close a lot of the time, so you'll be zooming in frequently. And I'm going to drag through the R. I'm going to drag through this little bottom portion of the R. And these are the lines that we added to make sure that our counters stayed attached. And so I'm just going to use the shape builder tool, drag through those areas, have them highlight in that checkerboard pattern, and as soon as that happens, then I can release my cursor or release my mouse button, and Illustrator will add those shapes to the common path. This can be a little tedious, but I wouldn't say that it's hard. It just takes a little attention to detail. And you want to make sure, like in this case, if I were to let go right now, because the E is filled in, I would actually lose that line. I'm going to go ahead and do it so you can see what would happen. And see, now my E is completely gone. So I'm going to have to use Control Z on a PC, Command Z on a Mac to fix that problem. Now in this case, maybe what I want to do is go the other direction. So I'll come from the counter of the E to the line that we drew, from the line that we drew to the full body. You can work in either direction. And it looks like we have all of the Will Rogers text added. So I'm going to fit my artboard in. And one of the nice things about this process is you can actually hold your cursor over your shape builder cursor over your image at any time to see where the common intersections are. Now I'm going to come up and work on my sun a little bit, and I need to keep this part connected because I want the cloud outline, but I need to make sure that in some area at all times the actually I'm going to undo that. I think I did more than I wanted to. That that the all the shapes are connected. So I'm going to pull that through there and down into here. And so then we'll have that cut out. And when you're curious about what this is going to look like, you can toggle back to your regular preview mode. Now I will caution you that the colors in your shape will change frequently. So in this case everything is turned to white. I can select that path. I may need to come over and make that selection in the layers menu, but oftentimes I'll work with a color like orange or some color out of the ordinary, so that when I make the selection in my project, that I can see what's going on. In this case I'm going to turn some text off and see what's going on there. There's our hoo-hoo path. So we can turn that group off, and that's the text that says Will Rogers down there. And I need to go the other direction with the sun here, so we're going to select all of this again. Go back to outline mode, Command Y or Control Y or View Outline, and we'll get the Shape Builder tool, and we'll come in here. Got to have everything selected, and continue to work on this portion of the image. Let's see, I wanted that line. Okay, so we'll come add this part. We'll add this part. We'll add this. And again, it's just a click and drag process. And get our sun there. And our sun here. And here. Now, sometimes we have lots of shapes that overlap all together, and like in this case where we have the counters for the letters and we have this extra piece of the sun. So you'll have to pay attention and make sure that you are including the parts that you mean to include, excluding the parts that you mean to exclude. Not necessarily a hard process, just a little bit of a tedious process. So I go straight down through the O, side to side. Now in this case, this is another place where it's good to toggle back and forth between your preview mode and your outline mode. Make sure that you have all the areas selected that you intend to select. And there's our O again. It's definitely a case of slow and steady wins the race. You want to make sure you pay really close attention and that you're making the selections you intend to make, rather than adding parts together that you didn't intend to include. You'll notice sometimes that you have areas where when you try to fill them in, you end up with an area that you didn't intend to fill in. So what you need to do is go and make sure that those areas are actually reacting the way you think they should. In this case, I actually have an area where I have lines that I think have crossed, but they haven't. So the solution to that, I'm going to get my direct selection tool, my white arrow tool, and I'm just going to drag those down so that the lines cross. Straighten up the lines a little bit so I'm happy with them. And then when the lines have crossed, I'm going to use Command A again and my shape builder tool and just drag through those areas and create a smooth shape. Zoom back out to my artboard and continue to work through these areas. I'm going to pause the video right here and finish this step up, and then we'll move on to the next step. So I'll be right back with you. When we're pretty sure that all of our area that we want to be one continuous piece of paper is put together properly, that would be when we hold our shape builder tool over our image and the area that is filled in is the continuous piece of paper. Then we're ready to make the last few little adjustments to our image before we send it to the die cutter. So I'm going to start by zooming out to my artboard and changing back to the preview mode. And so at this point I have my text in, or my image in orange, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by selecting something in my, over here in my artboard that is black. So in this case I happen to have some text. If I turn off my big group, I can see that that's where that original text to shape still sits. And I'm going to choose Select, Same Fill Color, and that'll select all the pieces of our artwork that were that black color. And then I'm going to go over to my Layers panel and I'm going to hit the trash can. And each time you do this, you're going to want to be very cognizant of the changes that happen when you delete things. Because and a lot of times another thing I'll do is, rather than delete, I'll actually make that selection, take the little selected artwork box and drag it to a new layer, and then I can turn that layer off and make sure, have I lost anything that I wanted, that I thought was important, that I still needed? If the answer is no, then I'm good to continue on. The next thing I notice is I have a white path, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to select Same Fill Color, and I'm going to take all those white pieces and drag them to that layer 3. This way I'm not actually getting rid of anything that I might need down the road, and I can see what my continuous piece looks like. Now I happen to know that we have a group. Remember earlier we pulled our compound path out of the group, and so I'm going to take this group that, if you notice, is the letters for Will Rogers, and I'm going to take that group, select it, drag it up to that layer 3 that's turned off. And then I have only two other little components here. One is a small piece. I'm going to zoom into this E and see what that is. It's a small piece by that E, and I think I can safely take that to that layer. Doesn't look like I lost anything. We'll do the same thing with this other piece. I'm going to zoom out to see my complete artboard. Looks like a little hairbit piece in here with this E, and so we'll drag that to layer 3. Now notice all I have on this layer that I've called Combining the Image is a group that consists of one compound path. If I move that, so I'm going to grab that compound path, move it outside of the group, and so the group goes away. All I have on that layer is this one path. That is what I'm shooting for. So I'm going to take a look at this path. I'm going to look at it both in preview mode and again in outline mode. Make sure that there are no lines now that intersect, that I don't intend to have intersect. And I'm going to do that by zooming in a little bit and then using, if I hold my shift bar, my cursor changes to the pan hand. So this will allow me to go through and check, make sure I don't see. Here I have a little line overlapping that I don't want. So I'm going to zoom in there and fix up this G. I'm going to select all, get my shape builder tool and just drag right through. I see what my issue is there. Okay. So my issue here is I have a line where it's not overlapping the way I want it to. Easy fix. I'll just grab that anchor point in each place, overlap them so that we have a continuous line. I'm going to take this area here and straighten that out so we have a nice cut. Command A or Control A. I'm going to drag through there, and now that'll go away. And zoom back out to our artboard, and we'll zoom back in, check these areas out again. Everything looks pretty good there. No overlapping lines anywhere I don't expect. Our tail shape, our paw shape, our text there is good. At this point, we are actually ready to make the changes that we need to this image to get it ready for the die cutting machine. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change our view back to preview mode, so Command Y or Control Y, and then what I'm going to do is I am going to go get our swatches menu, and I'm going to make sure I don't have a swatch selected. I'm going to create a new swatch. And for this swatch, I'm going to call it die line. And I typically set mine to a, well, you've got to set it to a spot color. I typically choose lab color for my spot. And then you're going to move it to a color that is not something that you would normally use. I like to use some very vivid magenta. Another color a lot of people like to use is a very vivid blue. Or I'm sorry, green, like lime green, the color that you would never be able to print. Either of those works just fine, and you're going to click OK. When you click OK, you're going to notice in your swatches panel, let me make my swatches panel larger here, that I now have a new swatch. It has a funny little marker in the corner, and when I hover over it, it's called die line. So what I want to do is select this shape that's going to be my die cut, and I'm going to set the stroke of that shape to the die line color. I'm going to give it no fill, and then I can just save this file. So I'm going to do File, Save. Now the next thing we're going to do, we're going to go up to Window, and we're going to open a window called the Separations Preview. The Separations Preview shows us all the layers in all the plates. So if we were going to take this to a commercial printer, the printing plates, and we can see them one at a time. The important thing to notice is that now we have a new layer called die line, and when we turn that die line layer off, the visibility of that layer off, our outline disappears. If we turn off any one of the process plates, the cyan, the magenta, the yellow, the black, our image does not change. If we turn off the die line, then that image does change. This is important because when you send this to a commercial printer, the commercial printer will know, and you'll communicate with them, that the die cut exists on its own plate. That's all there is to this week's assignment. I can't wait to see what you do. Have a great day.